When are we going to meet our galactic neighbours? And do we have a place where we can sit down and have a chat with them? Today, we're going to discuss that and more on the show, talking about the US, the ET Embassy that has been in the works. It's been an idea that's been in the works for a long time. On the show, stay tuned. It's going to be a great one.
You got to accentuate the positive. Wow, I feel good. A little bit of feel good goes a long way.
You're listening to Karen Swain, teacher of deliberate creation, accentuating the positive, showing you a way to a better life.
Accentuating the positive, it's not just fad, it's sanity. Who in their right mind would accentuate anything else?
Clap along if you feel like that's what you want to do.
Hello and welcome to another show, Accentuating the Positive, with Karen Swain on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, syndicated radio all over the world, hitting about 120 countries. Apparently, we've got about 700,000 listeners tuning in through the network, and we're streaming on quite a few platforms today, except that the internet's a little glitchy, so some of them aren't working. But anyway, great to see you all. We've got a couple of guests, Sylvain Rochon and Jennifer Jakovsky. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, absolute pleasure.
Just remember, too, that you're on radio. So when you do things like when you're silent and do hand gestures, people on radio can't see that. We've got a live audience. Miss Shirley, Zen, Vladdy, New Earth Platform, lots of people saying hello, hello, hello. Yeah, we're going to talk about the embassy, the ET Embassy. I've called it the Non-Human Intelligence Embassy, which is the new word that they're banding around in the UFO community, UAPs and NHIs, non-human intelligence. But Sylvain and I were just talking about, non-human intelligence could mean anything, really. Could mean octopus, could mean dolphins, elephants, could mean anything that's not human. So that's the new sort of word that they're using instead of ET. But you were saying that it's two different things. Extraterrestrial life and non-human intelligence are two different things, right, Sylvain?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Extraterrestrial just means outside of Earth. So intelligence that you'd find outside of Earth, that's what that means. NHI is any non-human intelligence. So you have a bunch of non-human intelligence on Earth, like you said, animals. And
right.
You can imagine other maybe beings that are transdimensional, maybe that are on Earth, but where we can't see them. They are not extraterrestrial because they're here. We just can't see them in a usual way. So the definitions are meaningful.
As we move into a more galactic society, we really have to find some new words, don't we? We really have to redefine our whole language. In every language, we have to redefine how we talk about this stuff, because I often think about the UFO, that everyone thinks when you say UFO that it's a alien spaceship, but it actually means unidentified object. It doesn't mean alien spaceship. And then they changed it to UAP, unidentified anonymous phenomena, or whatever, but again, it doesn't actually mean spaceship or craft, or it's a bit wishy-washy, isn't it? We've got to change. We've got to find some better vocab, some better vernacular. But let me tell you about these guests today. Sylvain has been on the show before talking about the embassy. It's been in the pipeline for about 20, 25 years, Sylvain?
If you look back at the original concept, we were talking about the that was started by Rael of the International Raelian Movement. He was given a mission by extraterrestrials to build the ET Embassy, and that was in 1973. So that was a long, long time ago. So they've been working at raising funds and making plans and kind of like socializing the concept for many years. The alliance proper was just was set up officially in early 2021, and we got the movement on board the alliance And so we appropriated basically that same project. So now we're working with them along with 34 other organizations now to make it happen.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, well, let's say it's been in the pipeline for a while, but the funds are there. So it's looking like it's going to happen. I think last time I spoke to you, which was a few years ago, you were looking for a country in which to put it in. And a lot has happened since then. Anyway, we'll go into it. And then I want to honor Jennifer. I want to tell you a little bit about my two guests. So Sylvain is one of the founders of the Alliance for Extraterrestrial Diplomatic Contact, an organization whose goal is to build the world's first United Nations recognized embassy for extraterrestrial civilization. And the beautiful Jennifer here is a licensed psychotherapist, spiritual counselor, and intuitive life coach who works to blend mental health and consciousness studies and interstellar readiness. I love this, interstellar readiness. She serves as a special advisor for human development and interstellar contact readiness in Canada. She's in Canada, for all you Canadians listening, another Canadian with the Alliance, and as an Earth-based elder on the Galactic Elders Council, guiding planetary and individual consciousness towards alignment with cosmic principles. Woohoo! What I'm loving that. So I asked Sylvain, now you sent out an email which prompted me to put you on the show, because I was going to upload a recorded show for the whole of December. And then I thought, oh, let me get Sylvain back on the show. What was the email about? There was something happening.
What prompted this was basically a memorandum of understanding with a nation to work towards the construction of an embassy. So that was the big press release maybe a week or two ago. So that's what went out, and multiple people in our network reacted to that, because that's the first time we have a nation that officially signs a document saying, okay, we want to build the embassy. So we're collaborating with the support network, that those others that are involved in that discussion to get discussions along with that one nation. So that's the trigger. That's what got this going this time.
Okay. And then I said, would you like to invite somebody else to come on and chat about it? And you said, yeah, Jennifer. So let's hear what Jennifer has, how you involved in this, Jennifer.
Absolutely. My role, as you said, it's a bit of a mouthful, as you said, is Special Advisor for Human Development and Interstellar Contact Readiness. And so from my perspective, my role is to do with the consciousness readiness of the planet. And I do that through, as you mentioned in my introduction, through the combination of psychotherapy and consciousness studies in what that looks like for the world to be ready for contact. And this is something that we, have talked about for ages. But the reality is, for most people, if somebody was to come and land in their backyard, most people, even those who are ready, are going to have some feelings about that come up. And part of my role is really working with the Alliance and helping to make sure that those of us who want to support this endeavor are truly ready on all of the different levels of consciousness that need to be in place in order for them to come.
Yeah. Hallelujah. I feel like that's my role as well. I really, because I speak to different groups of extraterrestrial consciousness, and they speak about our consciousness and how we're nowhere near ready. We're just nowhere near ready. We're so based in fear and separation instead of love and unity, and the light workers and the star seeds and the wanderers and the indigos, or whatever you want to call yourself, the sensitives, the empaths, spiritual ambassadors, galactic ambassadors that are here on Earth have been knocking themselves out to speak more about unity consciousness and to get us out of marinating in the fear consciousness. Because like all our Hollywood movies are, as soon as some sort of life lands from another place in the cosmos, all we want to do is shoot them down. Shoot them. Alien attack. Yeah. So we're so marinating in fear about all this stuff. How long do you
Absolutely.
think, either of you can answer this, how long do you think it'll be before collectively that fear dissolves in the collective mind of humanity about our galactic neighbours?
Okay. This is an interesting one, and I know my answer is not always the popular answer. But what is happening in the world right now, and the fact that we are having more divisiveness in a lot of ways, is actually a catalyst for bringing that about. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, as hard as it is for, as you said, for all of us who are doing this work and are passionate about it and want to see the collective become cohesive and coherent, we recognize that things need to break down in order for that to happen. And that
Absolutely.
breakdown is part of the process. It's not a doomsday thing that some people make it out to be. It really is how we come to that unity and understanding. And we kind of have to hit rock bottom in order for everybody who is part of or taking part in the divisiveness to go, you know what? This isn't working anymore. We need to do something different. And that is going to be, in my understanding, what brings that unity about.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. Okay, I'm going to use this one. Woohoo. And Sylvain, what do you want to say about that?
Yeah, this is something that's really close to my heart as well. Like this whole concept of unity, but also the whole path towards it. Because I've been involved with this kind of ideology and projects since I'm like 15 years old. So I was like 35 years or so, right? But in 2017, and I'm a technologist, I'm a scientist, like that's where I'm coming from, like that kind of angle. In 2017, I kind of realized, looking at what technology and what the world was doing on a practical sense, like, you know, with tech mostly, because I was in technology, still am. I realized that we could actually engineer a better world. So I published a book called Engineering Paradise in 2018 that talks about this, about creating intentionally a new world. And in that book, I describe, and I've been describing this in other articles and publications afterwards, is that it's a systems change that we need. And this is relevant to what you guys were just talking about. Like this, there's a need for a mindset change, right? To change how we see each other, how we see ourselves, how do we see the universe, that kind of thing. But the issue I identified back then was that where we are is in a state of fear and scarcity, right? And and I describe in the book what that does is we're always on the defensive. We're always trying to protect ourselves because it's a survival instinct, right? So you have these sympathetic neural system, right? The cortisol and all adrenaline, all this stuff is kind of roiling in our blood because we need to work for a living. We need to do all these things. It's part of the system that we've built over hundreds of years, right, for ourselves to survive so our whole system is a survivalist kind of system. And in that situation, when we are put in that situation of survival and competition, it's really hard to feel like kumbaya, let's be all together and let's be unified and having this altruistic vision of the world, because you're just trying to make ends meet all the time. So it's really hard for a population to kind of make that jump. But what I wrote in that time is like, now we have the technology and the understanding of the universe that allows us to build the new systems in which we're no longer in a scarcity mode, but we're in an abundance mode. And that frees up the mind to go all sorts of directions. Because now you're not trying to survive anymore. You can expand yourself. And people en masse can shift from one to the other. All of a sudden, the world's a different place. The world is no longer defensive, or much less. It's more accepting. It's free to think about concepts like ETs coming not being aggressive, shaking hands and enjoying each other, because you're not trying to survive anymore. You're good. You feel your foundations are safe. So that's a systems change enabling a mindset change. That's the way I see it. So I've been really excited in the last few years, and professionally, that's what I've been doing. A lot of futurism and a lot of advising in systems, because systems are cracking right now. They're having a hard time because of all the technology and all the advancements we're making. So it's, to Jennifer's point, we have the opportunity, or the two roads really we can travel. One is collapse of systems, and that's bad, but it's going to enable a rebirth. Or, like I describe in my book, let's not do that this time if we can. Let's rebuild before we get to a collapse into a new system and a new thing, that which would be way less traumatic, and free our minds to explore all these ideas and this unicity and this connectivity.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I was just having a chat to my galactic mob, and when you said, let's not do that this time, and I said, are we going to do that this time? And they said, yeah, pretty much you will, but but you haven't in some areas. And I said, what areas? And they said, well, the event of AI, it's going to so change this world. It's going to collapse a lot of systems because it's going to take so many people's jobs. I've spoken about this on the show with a few people, and that's traumatic when you lose your job. But as you say, if like, I don't know, 6 billion jobs are lost, then the world changes. It's not about a few hundred or a few 100,000 or even a few million jobs. It's about the whole system changing. So in some areas it'll be graceful, and in other areas it won't be. There'll be pushback and fighting and upset and trauma, and as there is on Earth. Yeah, the system change. Yeah.
Interestingly, because I work a lot with AI, right? And the collapse we anticipate, right, especially around the jobs, that's the survivalist kind of like discussion, where like we work to live. Yeah. So the job market disruption is a big part of this, which will provoke a need to change the systems. We with AI, especially just in the next few years, it'll be able to do our job tasks better than us, 100 times cheaper, and it never sleeps 24/7, right? And the discussion in the AI space is that, well, that would be great because humans will be able to move to a more supervisory role and a human-to-human interaction role, more creative role, which is what we are unique for. Right? AI can be creative as well, for sure, but it's humans don't buy into AI creativity like they do into creativity of humans. It's like the value is different. It's perceived different. But what I was getting, this prefaces what I wanted to say, and is that the nations that are the most advanced currently, at least presumed advanced technologically, or most of their economy is a service economy, like the US, Canada, Europe. Like we don't manufacture, we export knowledge a lot. That's where AI is most disruptive. So in countries that are less advanced, they will be less disrupted by AI than the more advanced nations.
Wow.
Which is interesting to me because we advanced nations, I mean, like I'm Canadian, even though I live in Thailand, we see ourselves as like ahead of the curve economically, and economic systems we control the economy a lot more. But we're going to see the disruption way more in advanced nations. Because nations that are more like in Thailand, it's a lot more like person-to-person exchange and values and manufacturing and farming and things. And people are busy. They're not impacted by AI. Most people don't use AI yet here.
Yeah.
So the disruption and the pain will be way more felt in Europe, in Western countries, and of course Japan Korea and Australia, these kind of countries.
That's interesting. I haven't thought about that before. Jennifer, do you want to weigh in on this one?
Sure. It's interesting because this is in the air right now. It seems we were just talking about something like this in the Galactic Shaman class this morning. And what was coming through is that part of this shift is going to help us. So in the galactic communities, we often talk about the difference between those beings that are service to self versus those that are service to other, and recognizing the oneness mentality that we need to get to in order to be able to be ready for what is next. And so one of the things that came forward in this conversation, I was asked, what was it like in the galactic life? And the reason I was being asked this is I have a book where I wrote about my Lyran lifetime. And so we were talking about that. And one of the things that was really prominent is in that lifetime, and the way it is still with the galactics, is that everybody was able to do what they loved. It wasn't an economic system like what we have here on Earth. And so to what Sylvain, what you're sharing, I think is beautiful because for one, I'm still on the fence around AI. I will admit that. But I understand both the fears that are associated with it and the benefits that it can bring. But
you're not alone. A lot of people are not comfortable with AI. Yeah, it's scary and amazing. It's scary and amazing. Yeah, but go on, you go.
Well, and the scary part, I had a friend who was visiting, and he was telling me that now you can have an AI twin do a meeting like this for you.
Absolutely.
And I thought I would be devastated to find out that I wasn't actually talking to another person, especially if it's a client or somebody, or I would never want to be on that end of, hey, here, talk to my AI twin in the work that I do. So I do feel that there is still a deep need for that person-to-person connection. But if there is the ability for AI to do some of the more menial or tedious tasks that I'm not a fan of doing, by all means, I think that that's fantastic. But I think it does come back to this idea that when we live in a world where we are all doing the things that we love, we just have a different mindset. And there's a different way of being in that space. So we're able to connect with each other, no longer out of that fear that you were talking about, Sylvain, but out of true connection, because we're not in a place of service to self anymore. We're not operating out of lack or fear. We're operating from a place of, as I serve you, I do serve myself, because that's true oneness.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm totally on board with everything you say. I'm just thinking about who I can introduce you to. Oh, should be a good speaker at this conference and that conference. And then anyway, my mind's ticking over. I don't know why I'd recommend you and not myself, but anyway, that's kind of how my mind works, because I'm always I can talk about numerology, but I'm always in service to the other. I'm always thinking about how I can benefit the other. That's the galactic consciousness, rather than thinking about, where can I go and talk and how can I be more known and how can I get my message out? I'm always thinking, oh, she has a great message. How can I help her? Oh, he has a great message. How can I help him? And that's what we're talking about, that sort of consciousness. You know what I mean? Yeah.
I can add to Jennifer's point, because this is really, I think this is probably one of the most important conversations in this time of turmoil and transition and into the unknown. As I saw a commenter a bit earlier, we have never been in this place. We're creating a new consciousness, essentially, artificially, right? Yeah. So it's weird, but I think it's time. It creates a moment where we can talk about values, right? And I've done this before when I was doing talks when I was launching my book. So that was 8 years ago. Okay, I remember doing some talks, and we were talking about values with the crowds, and people was like, well, what's, there's a change economy, all this stuff. I was talk about systems change, right? They would say, well, like, what will we do for work to eat if AI takes away the jobs, that kind of discussion, which is still ongoing today. And I said, well, I asked the crowd, like, what's valuable to you? What do you value in your life? And people would say things about their family, their children, things you'd expect, right? What they're passionate about, like their hobbies. No one talked about their job when talk about value. They would talk about what they enjoy and things like that. So the answer to me is like, what are you going to be doing in a new future, a new system? Well, you'll be doing what you find valuable.
Absolutely.
Because that's it. So so why is that so important? Well, it's because we are not machines. We're not designed to be factory workers or even social workers or like whatever work you're doing. We're designed to be valuable in the world to each other, and that's subjective. Different people see value in different ways and with different people, but it's an opportunity for us to create a system in which we delve in what we find invaluable as individuals, because everything else, all the busy work we're doing with our job, is part of a system of productivity. We need things to consume things, because we do need to eat, and we need a roof, and we need all that stuff. The whole system of us working is to support that. So what we find fundamentally not valuable, so not our family, our friends, and our hobbies, and these other things, can be automated. That's where AI lives. We're creating intelligence that can organize all that stuff more effectively in time, energy, and anything you can imagine, so that we don't need to do that and spend our time doing that, which we don't find valuable. We can spend our time in what is valuable fundamentally. So all the complaints about, you hear that often and forever. Parents don't spend enough time with their kids. Well, that's because we find that valuable. So why don't we do more of that? You don't spend enough time, being creative. Do more of that. That's the future world we can create, because AI exists and it's moving ahead quickly. The fear of it is real, because it's moving so fast. We don't really understand it. We don't really understand how it works even. And that's even the programmers don't understand how it really comes out and gives out the output. So we're not sure if there's enough guardrails to avoid disaster in releasing it. That's a real concern. That's a real concern.
But there's a lot of, go on.
If we can figure that out, we can create that world where we can be ourselves, be human. Yeah.
There's a lot of, in the chat, someone wrote way back here, I can't remember, something about Atlantis taught us lessons. Yeah, so there's a fear about the advance of technology, and ego, getting a hold of ego and advanced technology, and then trying to manipulate and control people. I think that happened with Atlantis. I don't even know if you believe in Atlantis. I do. I'm sure Jennifer does. She's nodding. How about you, Samantha? Do you believe in Atlantis?
Well, I'm more of a scientist, so
I know you are. Absolutely.
It seems to be a place that has existed. There's even some underwater ruins that were discovered in a couple of locations that may have been that place a long time ago. But other than that, I think it's a place that exists. I just don't know.
You got to have that physical proof. But I know you're a scientist, but you can't deny, hundreds of thousands, millions of people having memory of it, because so many do. I mean, is everyone crazy and just making it up? Are we all indulging in fantasy? I mean, that's the thing about, the materialist view versus the open-minded view, is that open-minded people is you you tap into your own inner memories or inner gut knowing. And scientists say, give me the proof, give me the proof. But I have to say, I think it's been about 4 years since we spoke on the show about the embassy. And back then you hadn't connected to so many communities that you do now. You were much more in the scientific mind, Sylvain. And I remember the conversation with you was a little stilted because I'm out there and, you know, tapping into everything. And you're like that reductionist view. But even having Jennifer on the show with you today, she tells me that you've come a long way since our last conversation, connecting to so many different understandings. And yeah, what's that journey been? And you've moved to Thailand, you've married and moved to Thailand from Canada, and there's been a lot of
Karen, I'm still the same me.
Yeah.
What happened is that I've surrounded myself with people that aren't me.
Yes, you have.
That's the beauty of humanity. Like, we are all different. We don't need to have all the same vision. We can just accept other people that have a different vision, and that allows you to include them as part of you in a way, right? So like, just trust other people's perspective. I don't need to be Jennifer. Jennifer is fine by herself, being herself, right? And I hope my perspective bleeds into other people's, and then we learn from each other that way, and we become a whole civilization that is seeing a topic in a full way.
Yeah, exactly. We need all points of view, the reductionist point of view, the materialist point of view, the psychic point of view. Yeah, we need all points of view. That's what celebrating diversity and difference and unity is all about, right? Jennifer, you're nodding. What would you like to say about this?
Yeah, what's coming to mind is we had a conversation at one point, Sylvain, I hope it's okay that I share a bit of this, when you were asked, you know, how do you know who to trust? Yeah. And you know, very much from a scientific standpoint, you know, Sylvain has a very succinct answer. And, you know, as he's going through it, I'm going, so you trust your gut and you're listening to them. Okay, cool. It's just that, right? It's just that it's being, you know, it's so interesting. When we talk about consciousness, we have to remember that in this form, we filter everything through the conditioning that we have in this moment. And that conditioning is going to change over time, but it remains the filter through which we operate. And so when we look at this idea of science and spirituality, of course, I'm going to look at it through the psychological sciences. But what we're doing is we're recognizing it's pattern recognition. Here we are within these frameworks that we have chosen to operate. And yet we do realize that these frameworks are constantly evolving. And so what ends up happening is, even though there is a framework through which we can say something is happening, there really isn't a whole lot of difference between this scientific process of knowing who to trust and trusting your gut or listening to them.
Yeah. Yeah. It's such a big topic, this, because, you know, I've been listening to people for, I don't know, over 25 years talk about consciousness on various levels. And I always trust my connection to my spirit guides or my higher self, or whatever you want to call it, my soul. Like, whenever somebody says something, I query it, like, is that true? But I trust them. Like, I don't trust my education or what I've read in a book or what somebody else has said on another podcast show, or even what people have said on my podcast shows. I always go straight to my source and say, tell me about that. How does that work? Is that true? Let me know more about that. You know, I don't take verbatim what somebody says as truth. I always query it, but I trust that rather than, I don't know, maybe you trust the science that you know, Sylvain, that you understand. You trust your scientific mind. What do you trust? Let me ask you that.
Well, here's what the research says. This is the scientist in me, right? Here's what the research says. If you want to get the best outcomes out of anything, like in your life, you can't just the best outcomes comes from people that follow both their gut and their brain in combination. If you're just like believing everything on this side and you're not really that leads to disaster. ultimately. If you're just rational and don't feel your gut, that also leads to disaster. There's a balance between the two, because it seems like, and this is just an output research, like just like what are the best outcomes and who the people are that do this. So the theory is our gut allows us to feel or to understand things at a different level than our rational thinking is capable of doing. And that involves our emotion, involves a bunch of things that we can't really explain straight up. We just call it gut, like it's a feeling. And then, we don't know what it is, but it appears to be an intrinsic component in truly understanding what's happening and to make good decisions. So fundamentally, that feel, that gut, those memories, everything you were talking about that's kind of fuzzy is really important to listen to.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you. But, that intuitive gut feeling that you get, again, like Jennifer says, is filtered through your mind, your understanding, like with everything. Even though you can have incredible access to higher guidance, it's still filtered through your belief systems, your programming, your understanding, your intellect. It's always filtered through that. Vladdy's got a question here. He says, what would you recommend doing to steer towards a future where we walk amongst our galactic neighbours and benefit from each other? I think we're kind of talking about it. It's all about consciousness, but who wants to have a stab at that? What do you recommend doing?
What do you think, Jennifer?
Sure. So this is actually a big piece of why I'm with the Alliance, is about what it is that we are meant to be doing. And the role that I have is very much focused on human development and readiness. And so it's about supporting the emotional, psychological, and consciousness-based aspects of preparing for peaceful contact. And the biggest thing that you could be doing right now is working on yourself, in the sense that every time something comes up in your experience that you get triggered, every time that somebody does something or says something and you go, oh, and a part of you wants to react to it. Every time you run into somebody and there's a judgment that shows up in your mind, every time that there is ever an experience within you that triggers some form of separation mentality, notice it. Observe it and go, where is this coming from and what can I do to shift it? Because if we each did that, we would have a different world in no time.
Mm-hmm.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. And how do you say this now?
It's hypnicity. Welcome, Nolani.
Hypnicity. Never heard of that word before. Is that a name or anyway?
It's a tag.
It's a tag. We each have an impact in the ripple on the pond. I'm not sure yet what my role is on Earth in this lifetime. And maybe if you were sure, I think you are sure. You're just judging it. You're just doubting it. I think we all have. Thank you for the answer, Lady says. Yeah, beautiful answer. Don't you love her? I'm in love with Jennifer. I've only just met you. I had no idea what she's about, but I'm loving you. I'm absolutely loving you. Thank you. So,
I think I have a little something to add to this, actually, because the fundamentals, Jennifer, you guys just touched it. Like you have to trust yourself and work on yourself first. Be the change you want to see in the world, right? And that's to me that's 80% of the work. Just that.
Yeah.
The second aspect of it, which is maybe my entrepreneurial side, is that you have to also be involved in the world, do things. So kind of like sitting on your couch and feeling happy and content on your own, that's really good. But if you don't interact with other people don't really see that and can't feel it, can't be influenced by it very, very much. So I encourage people to also be yourself, be happy, be a light in the world, and be also out in the world and doing things, do projects, volunteer, do meaningful work, interact with people in your community. then now your light is not just in your living room kind of sitting there. It's out shining on other people, right?
Yeah.
And the work you're doing in community can be just about anything. Me and Jennifer and you, Karen, we're very different people. We do different things, and we influence the world in different ways. And we're over 8 billion people, so we can have 8 billion people each doing something small every day. Well, that's 8 billion actions per day happening towards a beautiful world.
Absolutely.
So that's the key.
It can be so simple. I'm thinking of an interaction I had yesterday in the supermarket, and I let this guy go before me because he had 3 things and I had a trolley full of things. And I think he'd had a few drinks. He was a bit jolly. But anyway, he was very appreciative. And he was saying, oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. But even that's such a small thing of, like kindness and just letting someone go before you in a supermarket line. I know it sounds simple. And he started a conversation. As I said, he was a bit jolly. And he said, I'm not trying to like, crack onto you. Crack on is an Australian thing, like pick you up or something. And I said, darling, no one tries to crack onto me. I'm too old. And we started talking about age, honestly. And he's like, he looked about 20 years older than me. And he said, I'm 50, sort of proud of his age. And I said, well, I'm in my 60s. And he's like, no. And we were just having this fun interaction. And the guy that was, pressing the money and stuff, he was laughing. And just this joy in a supermarket line, just this interaction between people. But as you say, it's about critical mass. I think we forget the potency of critical mass. People call it the 100 monkey effect. I always think that's hilarious. But like the more and more people that don the unity consciousness and that we're all one family, human family, galactic family, we all come from the one source. Oh, it's 11:11 here. And we're all that one. We all come from the one energy, love, if you want to call it love. And how do you display that? Do you talk to strangers in a supermarket? Do you work at a soup kitchen? Like, how do you do that? Do you put on podcast shows? Do you write books? Are you a scientist? But yeah, the more people that don that unity consciousness, like the ripple in the pond from one of the comments, it just spreads. More and more people pick up on it because it's like coming home, isn't it? It's just coming home to the heart, and people remember it instead of being conditioned by separation.
Right. I'm reminded of influencers, right? Like people imagine that to change the world, you have to do a grand gesture that's going to be recognized by everybody, right? So you have to have 100 million subscribers on your YouTube channel, or you have to be a famous person. You have to be rich. You have to. So yeah, those are all nice things. Like of course, you have more influence if you're visible and all that stuff. But it's a cumulative effect of many, many small things that really make the big difference every day, right? So you can be an unknown person relatively in your own small town and have a massive impact. And it's funny how sometimes, and this is pretty rare because these don't come around to people that much, but you hear about other people speaking about you in a positive way. This is sometimes you hear about that. It's like, oh, they said that about me. You don't even know that person very well. It's like somehow you've impacted their life enough that they talked about you in a positive way to other people. So obviously you made some kind of impact, but you usually don't know about it. And if you hear feedback like that once, there's probably 100 times or 1,000 times where people did so, but you never heard about it.
Exactly.
You impact people around you when you're among them.
Exactly.
So if you're positive, if you are giving, if you're letting people in front of you in line, like simple things like that, you make enough impact over time that people talk about it. They remember it. So don't diminish the activities you have on a day-to-day. They are important. I can tell you how many, I don't know how many times I've had small interactions on the sidewalk with strangers that impacted me. And all they did basically was smile in some cases. And I remember the face because I don't know why at that moment in time that it was good for me. and I have a memory, but that person I've never seen again.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm really loving this comment from, how do you say this again?
Hypnicity.
Ethnicity.
Sorry. Hypnicity. Hypnicity. I love that, but I'm having trouble with that. I really appreciate respectful dialogue, especially with people who think differently. This is so important. And love him or hate him, I actually didn't really know anything about him until he was assassinated. This was really what Charlie Kirk was on about. He had strong conservative Christian point of view that I didn't agree with, but he was willing to dialogue with people who thought really differently to him. And that is such a powerful, because I was channeling him the day he died and I didn't know who he was. And then after that, because I came on a show and the person on the show was all upset because he'd just been assassinated. And I'm like channeling him and he kept saying, my message, my message, my message. And then after the show, I'm like, well, what was your message? Like, what's your message? And as I looked him up, it's hard to get through all the criticism about him and the Christian ideas and the conservative. But that was his message, to open dialogue with people that think differently to you. And I think that as we move into a galactic society, like there's going to be a lot of beings out there that think really differently to us, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any comments on that?
Yeah, to Sylvain, what you were saying, and I appreciate you bringing that out, because again, even this idea of working on us, we can't do that in isolation. Not really, because we're not gonna, yeah, maybe the hermit gets triggered because he trips on a rock, right? There's that idea. But truly, we get challenged when we face each other and have differences of opinions and think about things in new ways, because that allows us to open to what else is possible. And so this idea of respectful dialogue is such an important piece in our journey towards galactic communication. It's very true that even within the galactics and being in the Federation and being with the Elders Council, being able to see the way that these diverse races come together for a greater purpose. They don't all have the same way of doing it. They don't all have the same opinion about how things should be done. They don't all even operate in the same kind of way. And yet there is respectful dialogue that allows for them to operate in unity and bring that forward.
Yeah. Diane, I'm going to get you on because I want to get into your story, but I don't think we're going to have time in this show. But I think I want to get you back. Maybe you can come on. As I say, for the next couple of months, I was going to just upload some recorded shows and take some time off. But I keep finding people. I've got like 50 emails of people want to come on the show, right? I keep finding people I want to talk to. Yeah, and because I want to get back into the embassy and get into the nuts and bolts of the embassy, because we're talking about, how do we meet our cosmic neighbors through our consciousness, which is a huge job. But really, when I got you first on the show, Sylvain, it was to talk about this embassy because I thought it was exciting. And it's been, I don't know what, since the 70s, how many years ago? It's been 40, 50 years they've been talking about it. And it hasn't been built yet. But really, we need an embassy like this in every city, right? Like all over the world, not just one in one country. This needs to be all over the world. What do you want to say about the physical embassy and how do you see this sort of changing the world when it is being built, when it is built?
Well, this is it's a physical project, right? It's an actual building. Oh, thank you. There you go. So those are some of the plans and kind of some ideas of it. The concept, in a nutshell, the concept of the embassy is needed because we need an understanding between nations of what's going to happen, who's going to be present in a meeting with ETs in an official fashion. So real embassies are guided by the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations. That's a document that was signed by most people at the UN, most countries. And ambassadors have diplomatic immunity, so they have a special set of laws that are beyond any earthly laws. And this is a document that creates an understanding of how diplomatic missions occur in safety for the diplomats, right? So we're leveraging that idea to give nations an understanding of when and how a diplomatic contact with ETs will occur. So what do we need, according to the rules of the Vienna Convention, what do we need as a nation to declare an embassy for ETs on their own land and give that land ownership to the ETs and the building as well? Basically, that's how it works in a nutshell, right? And then when the country declares that under the Vienna Convention, other nations can choose to accept it or not. They can choose to say, well, I don't accept it. Most nations automatically say, yeah, I mean, this is a legit country that declares this. Therefore, this embassy is now part of our list of embassies for diplomatic missions according to the law. So it's really about nation states getting that understanding so that it's safe for each other, for us humans, when a first contact occurs, because that's going to be traumatic. A lot of countries are going to jockey for advantages in that contact, but the rules are set by the Vienna Convention, so they can still jockey, but the agreements are already done. Like, we know how this works with embassies. So this is to prevent problems between nations. And in order to arrive at that state where we can build, whether a politician is willing to put their neck out to build an embassy for ET specifically, which is an unusual ask, the civilization, the people of that country need to be ready for that, because otherwise it won't happen. The politician won't take that chance. Now, after many, many years, the politicians are starting to, because of disclosure discussions, because of the people have changed their minds, they're less fearful of the unknown and ETs, there are discussions around dining room tables about it. Politicians are much more willing to entertain that concept. This is why an MOU was signed recently by a nation. They feel it's politically safer now to actually declare to that population, hey, look, we're going to be doing this. And I'm spearheading this. So that kind of tells the level of where the population's at, in a way. Kind of gives that moment in time. But like you said before, like embassies like that, there's an embassy to Australia in almost every nation.
Yeah.
You start with one, so like the first, right? And then the nation that is kind of taking a risk is they want to make sure that there's funds available. They don't want necessarily to finance it. We have $50 million US ready for this, right? In our consortium. They want to make sure that it's desired. There's going to be people visiting it, interested in that. Well, the Alliance has gathered 2.2 million followers, people that want to see the embassy, and we're declaring that in our conversations with the people, with the politicians. They want to see numbers, right? They want to see it's worth the risk to do that the first time. Once a nation does that once, and there's no drastic fallout out of it, right? Every other nation is going to say, oh, this is a great idea. Let's do the same. Right?
Yeah.
But you need to have that first. And that creates that environment that is safe between us nations. So that's the idea of it. That's where we are.
Shirley's got a great question here. But I want to know, the conversation that we had 4 years ago, I said, where are you up to in getting this built? And you said, we've got to pick a country. At the moment, we're looking at where to put it, what country. So a lot's changed in 4 years. I think Israel was one of the high contenders that you guys were looking at, was it?
Well, the Iranian movement was wanted to have it built in Israel for the longest time. That was a request by the extraterrestrials.
Right.
Because that's where there's a lot of history in that location.
Okay.
It would be the third temple being built basically in Israel, where the first two were built around that area. But that's probably not in the cards.
No, because there's so much unrest at the moment.
Unrest, risk, and it's not a country that's currently open-minded
Right.
to a lot of things, not just
Yeah.
this at the moment. So there's but countries approach us like we're not picking the country. A country has to volunteer. So we have a handful of countries that we've been talking with over the last few years that are really interested, and one of them took the step forward and to sign a memorandum of collaboration to move things forward officially.
Which country was that?
I don't even know myself. This is Daniel, my partner, my co-founder. He's handling these discussions, and they are very, very sensitive. So I know of some countries we've been discussing with, and I'm not sure if one of those countries is the one that's signed, because Danielle won't tell me.
So Shirley's in Canada. We've got a few Canadians online. Love the room in Canada.
Canada would be great, but I don't think it's Canada. My little
there's been a lot of political unrest in Canada since 2020 as well. I hear about it from my Canadian tribe, what's going on, and lots of people unhappy with how Canada's been run politically. I suppose the same in the States. I would say the same in Australia. I don't think there are any enlightened politicians out there, to tell you the truth. But so where's Australia on the list? Because we've got lots of room. We are a big country with a tiny population.
Space is a big issue. Like the land area necessary for an embassy like this, you're talking about maximum like 2 square kilometers, right? Or 4 square kilometers, like 2 by 2 square. They can do everything in that space. So you don't need a big country, like a massive amount of land. What's most likely, just because of the approach that we're making, is an approach like it's kind of like it's a tourism project, because that's something that you can bet on. If you build an official embassy for ETs, people will come visit. So it becomes a business, a job creation project for government, because that's how they think. How will my constituent think about doing something like this? Well, if it makes jobs, if it creates an economic uptick, well, that's gonna work out. So countries that are acceptable to that pitch, that like that pitch, are typically countries where it's going to make a difference economically. So big countries like European countries, US, it would be barely a blip, right, in their economic register. But smaller countries that are poorer countries are just as good for an embassy. And I'm a romantic. I like the idea of a country. I don't know. Let's say Vanuatu. Right. Most people don't even know this country exists. Right. It's a country in Oceania. It's an island, and becoming the center of the planet because ETs have visited there the first time. I think that's a romantic kind of idea to me.
Well, I don't think ETs have visited there. I think ETs have been here forever, and they're all over the country. They're all over the planet. But you do know about Vanuatu if you live in Australia, because it is a holiday destination from here. It's not too far from here, Vanuatu. So you do know about it if you're an Australian. Shirley has some interesting question here about the nuts and bolts, and how do you tailor a living quarters? Are they for humans or aliens? If for aliens, how do you anticipate the form and needs of the visitors? Are you already familiar with those who are arriving?
Well, why don't you take this on, Jennifer? Because the embassy is designed for a humanoid, basically, like in shape. But why don't you take this on?
It is. It's interesting. So from the Federation point of view, the embassy isn't necessarily somewhere that they would stay. They have the capacity to be able to maintain being in their ships and then being here without much of an issue when it comes to actual diplomacy and talking. The idea for them of the embassy really is to establish a neutral protected diplomatic zone. So the idea is that they have a jurisdictional boundary, if you will. It's a neutral ground where they're going to be able to meet with us and know that it's going to honor the interstellar protocols for first contact. So when we look at their rules, if you will, around first contact, around their codex. It really, there's a lot of, I say rules, but it's really conscientious mindfulness that they have about how they want to interact with anybody, whether it is Earth or anywhere else. And so by having the embassy, it's really about having a place where we as humans are going to honor what they're bringing forward. So yes, it is a place for them, but it's not a place for them to come and stay. It's not a resort for them in that way. It really is about us here having making sure that whatever government they're in and the other governments in the world are going to honor this diplomatic zone, that no one particular country, even though, of course, the country who signs this first is going to have a lot of other countries potentially wanting also to follow suit. But the idea behind it is to have transparent communication, to be very clear about what it is they want to bring forward, and helping humanity to prepare in all of the ways, right? I know we've talked a lot about consciousness, but there is scientifically, culturally, all of the different aspects that are going to play into stabilization on Earth in order for this to happen. And the embassy is going to help with all of that, the scientific and the spiritual orientation, and our ability to minimize the potential for conflict and to clarify any potential misunderstanding. All of that is a part of what the embassy represents for them.
Yeah, it's like, it's a vision that I got over 20 years ago of consciousness centers all over the planet, talking to each other, where people can come to understand who we are as conscious beings, as spiritual beings, to let go of our stressful thinking and be more loving and unified. It's an idea that I've had forever. There are lots of little centers all over the place, all over the world, but they're not connected. Do you know what I mean? It's like they're not connected. I think about the music industry. If you're going to do a tour around the world, then you connect to all sorts of places where you go and play. It's the same with consciousness teachers. If you're going to do a tour around the world, can you connect to all different, places around the world where you can go and play? You can go and teach. You can go and, do meditate. Yeah, it's an idea I've had in my mind forever. It's not necessarily an ET embassy, but it would incorporate that consciousness, that intelligence.
Yeah, I think I told this story before, and recently we were laughing at this, and I'm not sure if it was one of our meetings or it was the recording I did on Friday with Tanis. But our ET friends, or NHI friends, if you would, they are extremely respectful of our own progress and our decisions, right? Mm-hmm. So, and they don't want to cause trauma. They don't want to cause a reaction of fear in that first contact, especially. So the expectation is that they will present themselves as familiar to us as possible.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So there's a building, we have all these rules about that building. The, Vienna Convention manages that. There's like tables, there's chairs, and there's all these things that are familiar to us, right? So we expect what would be less scary or as familiar as possible would be for them to land on the landing pad that's on the roof, right? With a spaceship. They walk down, they go into a room with their little briefcases and suits. That's how I described it. That's why it was funny. But they can imagine ETs with their suits and briefcases and ties, right? They come in, walk down, and everybody walks down just like a normal diplomatic meeting and have a conversation. They're all humanoid. They don't look too weird, right? Like people are having conversation. It's comfortable for us, right? This is familiar. So I expect that, but not necessarily the suit and ties and briefcases, but you know what I mean? Like familiar. Like familiar enough so that we can connect and understanding, and it's like, okay, these are non-threatening. We understand the proceedings and so on. And this would be broadcasted. It would be, taped from all sorts of angles and so on. Now, and then we have this conversation, this reveal of information and so on. After that moment in time of relief, like, oh, now we understand, we know, like, people get some kind of comfort because, oh, nothing exploded. It's like I see them and they make sense. It seems to be peaceful. After that, we can expect all sorts of weird type of contacts and interactions, because they don't need a building to come talk with us. They don't need any of it.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I'm thinking of maybe you don't believe it, in the story of Valiant Thor. So he was an extraterrestrial being who came to Earth, and he donned a human body, and he contacted. And I think that this story is one of many stories that have been out there, but he contacted our government, our being Earth, I think the American government, and he tried to be diplomatic. And back in the 60s? Was this in the 60s? Yeah. Jennifer, do you know the story of Valiant Thor? So I think that's happened. Pardon, Jane? What did you say?
Late 50s, early 60s?
Maybe late 50s. So there has been attempts by our galactic neighbours to contact our United Nations, our governments, for diplomatic contact, to talk to them about disclosure and stuff like this. And it's been thwarted. It's been pushed under the cover. It's, stories like that have been talked at as ridiculous and make-believe and blah, blah, blah. But this is a common story that they have come down in a very palpable way, like a palatable way, where they look human. And, they're the right size or the right shape, rather than being too tall or whatever, because many of them are very tall, or too short, or grey-looking beings. So what do you want to say about that? But governments have said humanity is not ready. We're not ready, and they've covered all that up.
I do want to speak really quickly. So Michelle had a comment there just saying, but isn't that a bit deceptive? You've got to remember that they do want what's best for us, and they do not want to set us into any kind of reactive state where we're going to go into panic and everything is going to go back after thousands of years of the work that they have put in to get us to where we are. They have been here, and they're here in many, many ways. And so this might show up as and we have this, people, sorry for the dogs, humans who have been born with full galactic memory. We have people who are here, who are in contact with them right now, and they're coming through in those ways. They're here in, oh my goodness, okay guys, they're here in the nature, they're here in the animals, they're here in so many different ways for us to begin to shift. Even just thinking about the insectoid races that are going to be coming through, there's a reason why we have miniatures of them here on Earth right now. There's been a huge plan for a millennia right now, getting us to this point so that we could be okay when we finally see them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, there are so many stories of people interacting with them on Earth. Wayshower, who is Gloria, says, I pause so not sure where you're at, but I'm concerned about the violent interaction towards ETs by many people in our government. And she says, we are a violent society. Well, we have been, Gloria, but, you're knocking yourself out, and we're all knocking ourselves out to be a less violent society. Yeah. And Mish says, thank you.
I think the concept of humanity as violent is incorrect. It's not true. We can be. We certainly can. Like, we've a bunch of examples of it. But even in cases where there's been a lot of violence, you can think about certain wars or certain uprisings and things like that. It was typically instigated by a small number of violent people, and other people get kind of dragged along in through social engineering, lies and deception, and all sorts of reasons. We are only violent when we are in an extremely stressful situation, or we're placed in that situation.
When we're in fear.
When we're in
Yeah.
fear. Yeah, that's when the selfishness becomes, and survival instinct pumps in.
Yeah.
There was a study I read. This was Harvard. I read this many years ago in prep when I was writing my first book. In fact, I think that was showing like what's the highest pleasure a person, like they were measuring different levels of pleasure for doing different things, like inside a population. And the highest level of pleasure was giving to others. That's when people feel the most pleasure is when they do something for other people without expectation. You know, when they do charity, when they give to their kids, and things like that. And it was very well measured. And and this was all done in a situation where people were not in chronic stress situations. All the people who were studied were all calm, kind of living a normal life and not living a crisis or a famine or whatever else. But if you do this same study in population or groups that are living like a chronic stress, they're at war, like in their neighborhood, there's gunfire everywhere, or they're suffering because of famine. These people behave differently. They start behaving much more selfishly. They fight each other and so on. That's where you get the violence. It's because of the situation you're in. So my whole concept of engineering paradise, that's why it came up in the research, was, well, let's make a world where the chronic stresses don't exist anymore. And if you do that, naturally, we will move towards doing activities that will give us pleasure. It's a selfish thing. But the selfish thing is giving to others. Yeah, that's what we feel like doing. As long as you don't have the chronic stress, goes back to the systemic change which you're talking about earlier.
As you said at the beginning of this, Sylvain, chronic stress is the survival instinct. How will I pay the bills? How will I make more money? How will I survive? And when we're not all running on this chronic survival instinct, then you start thinking
we're
about
beautiful, loving people naturally. Without
we're naturally loving.
The laws, you don't need any laws.
We're running out of time. It's going so quickly. There's a few questions here. Gloria wants to know about any discussion in your group about inner Earth civilizations. So there's been a lot of talk about inner Earth civilizations, about ETs that actually have societies and cities in the inner Earth. And also, Shirley says here, where is it? I've lost it. What did you say? Oh, here we go. So Jennifer, are the 8-foot mantis beings going to show themselves? 8 foot, 9 foot, some of them are 15 foot.
Some of them have not physically, but they have shown up to people here who they've come to say, we're here in peace. We want to help. We want to help to desensitize the fear around us and all of that. So they are around. Whether or not they will show up anytime soon in the 3D physical material form, that is, I think still a work in progress.
It's amazing how many abduction stories talk about the mantids, the being there, in all types, all flavors of ET. So with the greys and the little greys and the tall greys and the tall whites and the humanoid looking ET beings, that there is this background intelligence that's sort of operating the show, and it tends to be the mantids. It's really interesting. And lots going on underground. What do you know about what's going on underground, either of you?
That's a whole probably show in and of itself.
That's a whole show.
To dive into that. But there are different civilizations. Some of them are more in the physical, like we are. A lot of them are multidimensional beings that have been here for a period of time to help stabilize Earth's energetic grids. through Atlantis and things that happened there was a lot of destabilization that happened when Atlantis fell. And so there have been beings who have been here to try to help reestablish and all of that as well. And so those beings are a bit different in the sense that their role is very different than the role for the embassy. Although, of course, it sounds like all non-human intelligence is going to be welcome with this project.
Yeah. It's a great project. When do you see it actually coming to fruition, the physical structure being built? Because, as I said, you said it's been talked about since the 70s. It's a long time coming. But the beauty of this conversation is there is funds behind it. Did you say you had 50 million or a couple of, like, what's the figure there? There's 50 million.
There's a fund that was raised that's approximately $50 million US.
That should do it. Well, hopefully, you'd think.
Yeah, it's enough to get things started in a significant way. It's enough for the project, absolutely. So we're not worried about funds. More funds is better, but we don't need more to actually get this going. Through our partners and with our own activities. But timeline-wise, I mean, if you just look at the mechanics of it, to build an embassy, like we still need a country to dedicate the land, but that's the starting point. So that MOU we were talking about earlier, or a memorandum of collaboration, in fact, that's a step towards them designated the land and making it public, because it needs to be publicly declared, right? When during that process and when the declaration is official, at that point it's like the process of building a building. So we're like, let's assume there's an official declaration, let's say next year, 2026. Let's assume that. Well, we can still have the embassy open by 2030.
Okay, would it help if all the people listening to this, both online and through the networks, visualized the reality of it? Like, would that help, like, bring it into fruition, into manifestation through creative visualization of people seeing this as a reality, that I can go somewhere and shake hands with someone from another planet and have a conversation? Or at least, if I can't do it at this stage, governments can, like there's some sort of consortium, some sort of like UN can, physically sit down and have discussions and have videoing conferences so that we can all see them sitting at a table talking to a 11-foot man to be a 9-foot humanoid hermaphroditic ET.
Local listeners can contact their representatives and say, hey, like this is a project I like, because we need a country. Right, so there can be pressure from the population saying, "Oh, I like this. Like, here's a project. Let's do this." And yes, you can.
Vladdy said that he's been doing this only a couple of times. Yeah. Vladdy, every day since he's heard about this project, and I'd say that he heard about it when he heard about it on the show with you and I about 4 years ago. I just looked at the show we did. I'm just trying to figure out when it was. It said it was about 4 years ago that we had this conversation. But there seems to be a lot of talk about it and it not coming into fruition. But I guess because it's a diplomatic project, it is up to governments and permissions, and that, that runs also slowly, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You're looking up something, Sylvain.
Yeah, well, me and Jennifer, we're talking about a charter that we were sharing recently, and that's been circulating in a timely fashion. Well, Jennifer, why don't you share about what this is and where does it come from? Also,
we've got about 10 minutes left of the show, but you know what, Jennifer, if you're free next weekend, so you're in Canada, I think it's afternoon, evening. What time zone are you in? Eastern time zone?
I'm in
Is
Eastern.
it night?
Mm-hmm.
So it's nighttime for you. If you're free next Sunday night, maybe we'll get you back on the show to share your story next week. Would you like to do that?
I would
people in the chat, because we haven't even explored her story. There's just I see you've and I want to know more about your story and your connection to your galactic mob. But yeah, what were you going to say about that?
Well, that's part of it, is through that connection with the Elders Council and the Federation. Once the movement started to happen with a country being involved, they said, okay, it's time. And so I passed on to Sylvain and the Alliance an Earth Contract Decree, a charter for interstellar contact that we are meant to sign and honor. And so this is still in the works and being discussed. But one of the components of that is to have a section, hopefully on the website or something like that. It's still all, again, a concept at this point, but a unity register for Earth allies. And the idea behind that is that anyone who is watching, who wants to be a part of this, who says, yes, I am going to make the conscious, intentional decision to work towards being ready and prepared. And I want my experience to open others to being open. I want to make sure that I am continually honoring the codex, the on the Alliance. I think on one of the blogs already, they had information out in terms of how we are meant to be as humans in order to be ready for this contact. And so as we're visualizing and going, okay, yes, I want this embassy to come forward, a wonderful part of that is to consciously and intentionally say, yes, I within myself am going to sign this and say that I support this. And I think that as we do that globally, there's going to be a shift, and that is going to help that energetic change that you all were talking about earlier.
Is that not sharing? No. Add to stage. Is that not sharing? So I'm trying to share the website. Is that not sharing?
You're sharing the screenshot of the embassy now.
Oh, I see. I've frozen. No, I'm trying to share this. Remove that. Sorry, I've got really slow internet today. Did that not share? No, that's not sharing. Let me try again. Keep talking as I try and get the tech happening here. I'm trying to show your website.
Well, for those that are listening, I think it's good to just state what the website is. So the website link is the word alliance. So, as the actual English word, the number 4 et.org. So that's alliance, the number 4 et.org. And you can go there. You can see the approximate timeline of the link, the embassy. You can see the unit convention protocol, like some of the technical elements of it, and you can also see the network of supporters there that are on the website. Here's the website live for those that are off YouTube and whatnot. And it is also a membership page that allows you that shows you different ways you can get involved with the Alliance, and if you so choose.
Yeah, my screen froze. We could still hear you, but yeah, I was frozen. So I was trying to share this, but it was frozen. Yeah, so the Alliance for ET.org, and you can see what the guys have been talking about on here. Get involved. Yeah, because there's so many people writing books about it, talking about it. There does need to be a place where we can all come together. Many people have had this idea of bringing them together. But what's really interesting, as people think, yeah, we need to be more unified on this topic, they start their own groups. And then there are all these different groups all doing their own thing, trying to bring people into the group. Humans. And yeah, and so it just turns into a little
funny though. Like we talk about many times, like everybody's different with their different perspective, right? So they join or create unique groups that gather, and so you have like a gazillion groups, and they all want to see the ETs come. They just have a different view, a different angle to it, that kind of thing. And in the Alliance, when we created the Alliance, the purpose is to create a link between them. It's like they're all working on different aspects of what needs to get done, right? but they all have the same idea. We're gathering the same fundamental idea, which is universal love, being one, and welcoming the galactics, like the ATs, humanity. And if you got those three things, you're part of the gang. You can still have your group. You don't need to join a different group. You just keep with your group, keep doing what you're passionate about, but connect with others. So we're growing a network of people that have the same purpose, the same idea around an ET embassy. But each group is important in supporting and representing individuals that have a different motivation. And that represents humanity in a way. That's how we get where we need to go. Everybody's represented.
There's a few things I haven't asked you with 5 minutes left to go. Because you're living in Thailand now. What is, from your perspective, like the consensus with the Thais? Are they open to this? Are they closed-minded? Are they scared? Like, have you met a lot of people that are really interested in this topic in Thailand? The Thais, you don't look to.
Well, it's interesting in Asia in general, not just in Thailand. ETs and disclosure, all this discussion doesn't exist. Like, people don't talk about it. It's not.
People would say that. People would say that in Western countries and European countries as well. Unless you're among people that talk about it, then people don't talk about it. When you're out at the pub or at a restaurant or at the beach, they're not talking about it. But there are a lot of groups coming together talking about it. I mean, are there groups and networks in Asia or in Thailand?
Not much. That's my point. We have like very developed contacts in Japan and Korea where there's a lot more communication going on. There are very few groups. There are some. But compared to the West, it's not part of the discussion. There's not a lot going on. I'm sure there's plenty of contactees and channelers and people like that. We're trying to find them, but it's not the same as the West, and I don't know what that means. I know culturally in Thailand, they're very, very open-minded to all sorts of ideas. Being primarily Buddhist, I think that helps. In philosophy, they're very open-minded. Is that one of the reasons? I don't know. But it's not part of the conversations in general over here like it is in the West. So yeah.
Your Thai wife, we've got 3 minutes to go. I've still got a million questions. She's obviously on board with it. Otherwise, she probably wouldn't have married you. So she's, I mean, does she talk about it with her family, her friends?
No,
or is it secret?
Lets me do whatever. Like, this is kind of Thai mentality in general. It's like live and let live, right? So she lets me do my things, like my belief. She has her own very traditional Buddhist upbringing and family life, and that's. But they're open-minded. Like her sister speaks with God beings of some kind, like she's a channeler, and it's normal to them.
And it's interesting that you bring religion into the ET conversation. A lot of people do when we talk about, ETs and landing and making themselves known globally. People think all those religious people's heads are going to explode or something. I don't know. Like, it's the conversation of religion and ET is closely tied, right? Whatever religion, Buddhist, Hindu. I think the Hindus are probably more open than the Christians, all those millions of flavors of Christianity. Yeah.
Well, I think the prophets of all religions were essentially contactees, like ETs. They were just mistaken for being gods.
Well, that's the other question I was going to ask you. I think I asked you last time with 2 minutes to go of the show. The Raelian movement, the founder of the Raelian movement was in contact with his flavor of ETs. Where were they from again? They were humanoid ETs from where?
There's no mention. They were just called Elohim, which is the ancient Hebrew term that just means those who came from the sky. So how do we just know what they look like, which is they're small, big eyes, greenish skin.
Oh, okay. So they weren't humanoids. They were
no associated like Pleiadians or like there's no name associated, and he doesn't venture that information. He doesn't know either. So I don't know how it relates to some of the more modern
Because
term.
it's interesting. It's interesting because a lot of people I've spoken to on the show with 1 Minute to Go are a member of the Galactic Federation. Like Kevin Briggs, I think you know Kevin. He has a council of 8, and they're all different flavors. There's greys, door whites, mantids, and they all come together in a consortium, in a group, collectively, rather than one group reaching out to humanity and saying, "Okay, we've got a job for you." They come together as a group and say, okay, we've got a job for you, but it's more of a group consciousness rather than one race. Yeah. So, yeah. Anyway, we've run out of time.
Really quick
conversation for another time. Yeah, go on, Jennifer. We'll talk about it next week.
On the topic, but I've studied so many of the world religions, and I do believe that there is an underlying current between all of them. But if you actually go through them, not the fundamentalist beliefs, but the actual teachings in each of the religions, Christianity believes that all creation is the creation of God in whatever form that takes for each person. So there is an openness to the possibility of other beings also being part of that creation. And there's even biblical stories like Ezekiel's vision that talk about that. Judaism, ET life is not only possible, but it's likely within their cosmology. You look at Islam and they talk about life beyond Earth. And everything is the heavens and the earth and everything in between. And so there's a lot of energy around what else is possible. Hinduism teaching already it's part of their cosmology that there is other beings out there. And so really when you go through,
we've gone over time because we've got another show coming up, so I've got to go. Let's talk about it on the show next week, Jennifer. Thank you so much for coming back on the show. Big love to everybody in the chat. Thanks for your great questions, and great to see you again, Sylvain. And let's continue the conversation. Bye for now.
Bye.